OCO fam, so I'm about to break down 2 second style, the three type of DNA tests it is. So first we're gonna start out with the DNA paternity test, which is the most accurate test it is, right, in DNA testing. And that's simply because they're comparing the DNA of the father to the DNA of the fetus. Right, so a DNA paternity test is nearly 100% accurate at determining whether a man is another person's biological father. DNA tests can use cheek swabs or blood tests. You must have the test done in a medical setting if you need results for legal reasons. Prenatal paternity tests can determine fatherhood during pregnancy. So next we have forensic DNA testing, which is used by law enforcement agencies to convict criminals of a crime, right? Now, forensic DNA testing is not 100% proof. It has at times convicted the wrong person of a crime, or been used to convict the wrong person of a crime, and also there's been reports of certain labs, manipulating a DNA test to convict people. And with DNA testing, it has with forensic DNA testing, it comes with different variables. So it depends on how clear the sample is of the DNA they get to be able to convict someone. But here we go. Forensic DNA testing is the use of DNA testing in solving crimes, and it has become very useful for law enforcement and achieving true justice. DNA testing has been proven useful in both convicting and exonerating criminal suspects in both current and cold cases. Additionally, progress in forensic DNA testing enables results to be provided more quickly and accurately. So basically, as you can see, they use the DNA that's found at the scene of a crime and compare it to suspects, right? And whoever matches is the person, usually, right? Depending on the circumstances of the crime. So at the root of both of the most accurate DNA testing, which is paternal and forensic DNA testing, comparisons is what make it most accurate, right? Being able to compare said DNA to another DNA, and you'll find out if it's a match. So we gotta keep that in mind when we dealing with these ancestry DNA testing, because the only how they can determine who's your ancestors or where you come from if they have the bones and the DNA of your ancestors, which they don't. They comparing it to other living people. But I'm gonna let the specialist break it down to y'all if you didn't watch this before.
Ads online for DNA testing kits like 23andMe and Ancestry.com, where you spit in a little tube, mail it away, and they will come back and tell you that you are exactly 86.5% Scandinavian. But you may be surprised to know those are almost totally bullshit. Remember back in your high school biology class when you saw the little picture of DNA and you had those pairs of A and T and G and C? Those are called base pairs, and the human genome, which is the total amount of genetic information that makes up one human being, contains about 3.2 billion of those. But of those, around 99% or more of them are identical from person to person. That's all the information about what makes a human. But that tiny little percentage that changes, those are what make you, you. They dictate the color of your hair, the color of your eyes, your height, your metabolic processes, and a ton more. And we call those single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs. When you take one of these DNA tests, what you're doing is you're spitting in that tube and you're mailing it off to them, and they're going to analyze the DNA that they can extract from your spit, and they're going to look at those SNPs that make you, you, and try and compare them to some reference database they have about SNPs that appear commonly out in the world. But there's a couple of massive problems with this. Firstly, their reference database of all that genetic information is only from modern humans, meaning they don't actually have any data from the people that were in those regions back when, those genes were added into your DNA. And more importantly, there are SNPs that are incredibly geographically disparate. There are single SNP combinations which can be found in both Mexico and China and Chile. And just because you have that combination doesn't mean that you're going to be from one of those places. So long story short, DNA tests like 23andMe purport to be a lot more accurate than they actually are. Unfortunately, there just isn't a way to find out exactly what the genetic makeup of yourself is unless you can trace it back directly through lineage by documentation.
Want to believe.
They want to believe they've gotten an answer.
And it's not fair of us to let them believe that we're giving them certain answers, because scientifically, we just can't.
Hank Greeley is concerned that the science isn't really there yet for you to be giving them the name of a tribe.
I think for most companies, I would be concerned too.
But what about your own company?
We have
He
the
didn't
largest,
exclude you. He included you.
but we have the largest set of sequences from Africa, and so with that, we're able to provide some level of probability in terms of frequency.
But he would say that even though you have the largest database, it's still small on the scope of things.
As I said, I share those concerns. We provide a service. If you're interested in exploring a tiny bit of your DNA and trace its ancestry, we can do that.
When you say it's a tiny little amount,
It's less than 0.1%.
and that's pretty teeny.
Yeah, but for people who know nothing about any of them, I think it's very important.